Welcome to this evening's Muskogee City Council meeting, February 22nd, 2016. Our invocation this evening will be by Councilman Marlon Coleman, and then join us for the flag salute.
Dear Lord, we thank you so kindly for this opportunity to gather. We pray your blessing upon us, oh God, that by the direction of your Holy Spirit, you give us the proper direction and guidance that we need for the betterment of Muskogee as we make these decisions for the people that you've called us to serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do before or after roll call?
You can do it after, I guess.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Here. Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Leanne Langston.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We are accounted for. We have a presentation to make this evening, so we're going to ask Thomas Hawkins to join us up the front, and you are welcome to bring your wife with you as well if you'd like.
We all go with it.
Join us down front. Johnson?
Mean Dan.
Oh, God.
Lieutenant Hawkins has spent 33 years defending the American way of life, 8 years in the military and 25 in law enforcement. He was a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, serving as a combat engineer and a drill sergeant. Lieutenant Hawkins is retiring as lieutenant, serving 14 years on the Special Operations Team, 8 years as a K-9 supervisor, 4.5 years in the Narcotics Division, and 21 years in the Patrol Division. And we're here tonight to say thank you for years of service for the city of Muskogee and the citizens of Muskogee. And we just want to say we appreciate you. Thank you, sir. And we have a nice item in recognition of that. Thank you very much for your service. Would you like to make a comment? You're welcome to do that.
All right. I'll be real brief. I've got a wife and family that supported me, and I feel honored and privileged to be able to serve citizens of Muskogee and my country for the 8 years prior to becoming to law enforcement. I've seen a lot of good things, and I've seen a lot of bad things, and I cherish the good things, and I remember the bad, try to make them better. And, you know, watching these guys, I've seen a lot of city councilmen in my years, my 25 years down here, and this team that's up here now is pretty awesome. They've done a lot more in these last few years than I've seen probably over the last 20 years, so they need to keep up what they're doing, and they're going to bring Muskogee a long ways, and I'm just glad that I got to be part of it, and I just want to thank you for everything that you've done. And I want to throw a little challenge out there to the City Council and the citizens of Muskogee. You know, if you watch the news, national news, you see that law enforcement officers get a real bad rap here lately. Well, there's a lot of guys here in Muskogee that really care and have a lot of passion about their job, and I'm one of those guys. And I've had more people in the last couple months tell me or thank me for my service, and that went a long ways. So next time you see a police officer, just shake their hand and tell them, hey, thank you for your service, and it'll mean a lot to them, I promise you. And I'm going to end it here, sir. But thanks again.
It just wasn't the same,
Work on my rings and take care of my grandkids.
We'll now look at our minutes from the regular session on February the 8th and the special call session on February the 16th. Is there additions or corrections to those minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. We'll now consider our consent agenda, and that's items 1 through 6. Is there anything that anyone would like to move to the regular agenda?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Now, regular agenda item number 7, and I understand that that is going to be stricken from the agenda. Is that correct, Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 8.
Receive mid-year report from Muskogee City County Port Authority in accordance with its cooperative agreement with the City of Muskogee and take any necessary action.
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the agreement that exists between the City of Muskogee and the Muskogee County Port Authority, as the council knows, the city contracts with the port to provide for our industrial development. Eric Miller is here with the port to make that presentation. He presented his report via email to me, and I submitted that to you all earlier this week. And he is now here to answer any questions and make a brief oral presentation on that. And I'll turn the floor over to you, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, councilors, good evening. Thank you for having us before you again to give commentary on the activities of the Muskogee Industrial Development Office for the past year. You, as the city manager indicated to you, you have the report before you, and I'm happy to field any questions that you may have generating from that report. But before we do, let me offer just a few comments. From the city of Muskogee perspective, we just concluded an election year, and it dawned upon me during the course of the election, and I heard numerous candidates speak about how important economic development was to them, how important job creation was to them, and yet not a single candidate, save the mayor, ever engaged me in my office to talk about what the economic development plan was from an industrial standpoint for the city and the county of Muskogee. Well, that said a lot of things, but the most notable thing it said to me was perhaps we're not doing a good enough job internally to convey our message of how important economic development is in Muskogee City and County. And so, the best analogy I could come up with to explain it to you really made the irony of the political season very poignant. Because what we do is very much like a political campaign. There are 15,000 economic development entities in this country that pursue on average 300 industrial projects in a year. I say 15,000 economic development entities. The number of communities they represent are exponentially greater than that. And so it's a very competitive business. And so our efforts have to be day in, day out, elevating the profile of this community, through visits to see site location consultants, visits to see C-level executives in the corporations, visits to see all the centers of influence that have an impact on the site location decision-making process for a company. We were very aggressive about that last year, and we're very successful in that. But it's not just the personal piece in that way. It's also our presence through our website and our presence in social media. And so we've made great strides and continue to make strides in those areas to help elevate the profile of Muskogee, in some instances, quite frankly, change the perception of Muskogee, and we will continue to do that in this ensuing year. But the onus doesn't just fall on my office or our office. Quite frankly, it falls on every citizen of Muskogee and the leadership of Muskogee. And so to the extent that leaders utilize social media, it's incumbent upon them, dare I say, it's their responsibility to project a positive image about Muskogee and what's happening in Muskogee. Because it's not just us, the folks who are hired to represent Muskogee, that entities, consultants, companies look at when they're searching this community to see if what we say is the reality of the situation. They also do their due diligence and look around and see what's happening with City Council, what's happening with county commissioners. What are the citizens themselves saying about that community, and how much does that lend credibility to what the hired hands, if you will, are trying to tell us about this community? Well, the good news is Most of those results are very good. As most of you know, last year, while the general activity for leads was down, we had a very good year in terms of prospect activity. We had 2 major industries visit this community, representing over $1 billion in new investment and over 1,000 jobs. We were one of 155 in one instance and one of 160 plus communities in the country that were evaluated for these opportunities, and including multiple communities in Oklahoma. And when the dust settled, in one instance we were one of 3, in the other instance we were one of 6. I'd say that's pretty good. We will continue to make those efforts this year. So far, lead activity has been high versus last year. We're over a month and a half into the season, to the year. We are well over 50% of what we generated in terms of leads last year. So that's a good sign, considering the trend has been downward in terms of lead generation. I'll keep my comments brief. I have a lot of them, but I'll keep them brief. And just suffice it to say, really, the tone of my comments is that we really have to present a unified front about this community in order to bolster my organizations, the Porch organization, efforts to recruit industry here. Much of that effort is creating a positive perception about cooperation in the public-private sector, about an energy, a vitality to move things forward in this community. That certainly is the mantra that my office operates under, and it's something that we do each and every day. Those of you who have been the beneficiaries of my emails at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, you know I don't stop working just because the sun sets. My staff can certainly attest to that, and while I'm here, let me introduce my staff. You all know Port Director Scott Robinson. Kerry Keene is our Marketing and Research Manager, just hired Kerry in November. Who doesn't know Marie Sinar? But Marie Sinar is the Deputy Director. And Trish, and I almost call you my term of endearment, but Patricia Myers is the new Executive Assistant in the office. They all make a valuable contribution to the office, without whom we couldn't accomplish our task. And with that being said, I'll leave you with a quote from Winston Churchill that I think sums up exactly the way we approach this business. To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered a chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. That is what we try to live up to every day. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Before we begin, there are 2 things I'd like you to cover. Eric and I had a number of conversations in preparation for this report, and there were a couple of bits of information that he gave to me that I thought were very important, and I want to make sure that he conveys them to you, because a lot of questions that I see not only on Facebook and other social media, but that people will ask me about, and I, in turn, of course, ask Eric about. And so I'd like you to speak a little bit on a couple of these topics. The first is, why is it important for us to be involved in the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce? We're not Tulsa, so when I asked you that question, you gave me a good answer, and I think it's important. And it's an important answer for the council to be aware of, as well as the citizens who are watching. And if you'd answer that question,
Yes.
Then I'll ask my second one.
Great, thank you. I'll be glad to, Roy. Thank you. The days are long gone when a single community can stand on its own merit and be competitive for industrial development projects. Muskogee in particular, but today communities present themselves as a region because exponentially the opportunities for either a skilled labor pool or quality of life amenities or other resources that companies look for when they evaluate a community are present from a regional standpoint and not in the perspective of a singular community. That's just the way the business is done now. That's just the way the analysis is done now. That regionalism is best practices in the economic development world today. That's just simply put. That's just how it is. And so, yeah, that's just how it is.
So what does the Tulsa Chamber do for us?
And well, let me give you one poignant example. In the instance where we were pursuing one of the companies that I mentioned to you, I got a call on, let's just for sake of discussion say on a Tuesday, and I was told we needed to present in Atlanta the following Monday. Now, the dates may be off, but that's just to give you a sense of it. Well, Muskogee doesn't resonate. I mean, quite frankly, nobody knew where Muskogee was or what it was. We got in because we presented a site and a compelling case from a financial standpoint to compete for this opportunity. But what we also knew was that in order to make that a competitive case and to, quite frankly, meet the specifications outlined in the request for information from the consultant, we had to show a labor pool that was sufficiently large for them to feel comfortable about the fact that they would be able to draw and retain the skilled labor that they need to operate their facility. And quite frankly, we were directed to look in a radius of about an hour from around Muskogee, which fully took in about 11 counties, give or take, and was well over 1,300,000 people. And so that process was really driven by the consultant and the company. Where Tulsa really came into play beyond the standpoint of providing us research and assistance with responding to the RFI was I called the president of the Tulsa Chamber and said, look, I know you have to be in D.C. for the D.C. flying or whatever it was, but we're about to make a major presentation in Atlanta for a project that was $200 million and $200 million plus dollars and over 300 jobs. I need you to come and present on the assets in Tulsa to help buttress, corroborate, and bolden our case for this company coming to Muskogee. Because the fact of the matter is, and this may pain some of you to hear me say this, but my main interest is getting the facility and the jobs in Muskogee. If the executives of the country happen to find a quality of life that appeals to them better in Broken Arrow or other parts of Tulsa, I can live with that because the jobs, the payroll, everything, the tax base is all here in Muskogee. And so you have to approach it from that standpoint. And the Tulsa regional president changed his plans, flew to Atlanta, joined me in the presentation along with OG&E and One Gas. And a representative from Holloway, Updike, and Bellin. And we made the cut, and the company came and visited Muskogee not once but twice. The chamber also provided assistance in the project when the company executives, 6 of whom were foreign, 1 was domestic, flew into Tulsa in terms of providing transportation, coordinating the travel around Muskogee to and from the airport. It's a tremendous assistance, absolutely tremendous. They are a great and valued partner in everything that we do.
Thank you, Eric. And the second thing that during our discussion I found particularly interesting was something that you told me in attracting new industry. One of the key components that the city and its partners have to be sure of is to ensure that the existing industries are satisfied with the efforts that you are making in continuing to maintain the infrastructure surrounding them and to make sure that you have kept your promises to them.
And so the main point that you're really trying to convey, thank you, Roy, when you're meeting with the companies or the consultants is that you are an aggressive, solution-oriented community that lives up to your commitments. And just like in any business, your best salesperson is a satisfied customer. And our existing industry base, where in any given year, fully 70% of any new jobs, new capital created in that community is done by your existing industry, is a critical cog in our efforts to recruit industry. When companies come to town and they're serious about their evaluation, one of the things they want to do is meet with your existing industry so they can have candid and frank conversations about what is it like to do business here? What is it like to live here? What are your labor challenges? How good does city government support you? How well does the Industrial Development Office live up to what they represent to you? All of those things matter. And I go to sleep very well at night knowing, not thinking, knowing that we have a great working relationship with our existing industry base. We've had some challenges, but I would say to you today, and challenges that you're familiar with, even in that situation, that industry's concerns have been assuaged. Positive progress is being made due to collaborative efforts between the city, Mike Stewart and his group, the port's office, our office, and such that situation will now become a great story as opposed to a situation where, quite frankly, we couldn't afford to have any industry go visit that industry because it would not have been a good story.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Miller. Given the fact that we know economic development helps create wealth for some of our citizens who may not have an opportunity to advance without it being such a key component, what can we do to help our citizens here in Muskogee to be better prepared so that when certain industries begin to explore us, they're ready for those job opportunities. What can we do? What avenues can we direct them to? Do we need to have enhanced cooperation and collaborations with the training institutions? What can we do to make certain our citizens have an opportunity to get a fair share of those jobs should they consider coming to Muskogee?
Well, that's a great question, and I can, the answers to that are numerous and myriad. Let me say this. I can tell you one example where we are trying to address that issue at a very early stage. That's our Dream It, Do It program being spearheaded out of our office by Marie Sinar. But it's a program, it's a national program being administered in the state of Oklahoma by a young lady who works for a company in Tulsa. But the program essentially is geared toward educating teachers, educational administrators, students, and their parents about the contrast between the contemporary manufacturing space, today's manufacturing world, versus what their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents knew as a manufacturing facility. It emphasizes the high-tech nature of the jobs, the high-quality wages of the job, and quite frankly, a career path in manufacturing. Because a lot of the problem today in terms of getting kids to have a more positive perception about technical education is the fact that they think number one, that they think it's, the education is something less than a 4-year degree, and number two, it leads them into manufacturing, and there's nothing glamorous about manufacturing, and there's no real career path in manufacturing, and they can't earn great wages in manufacturing. Nothing could be further from the truth. And quite frankly, as companies, and you read about this all the time, but as companies look for ways to become more efficient by becoming more automated, meaning they need less human capital in the facilities, the better your skill set, the better your opportunity for a job, number one. And the better your skill set, the better your opportunity for a high-paying job, because that's what the skill sets will require. And so we're very active in the Dream It, Do It program, and we're always meeting with various workforce and labor groups trying to conceive of creative approaches to deal with that issue. But it's a ubiquitous issue. It's not unique to Muskogee. It's present all over this country. And so, we're not in it alone. It's really a process. It's not a destination. It's a journey. Just got to continue to be diligent about it.
And as a follow-up to that, is there a way for us to reach people outside of the school-age crew? For example, those 25 to 35-year-olds who may not have the skill set but have the ability. Does the Dream It, Do It program reach them as well?
That does not address them, but there are other initiatives that probably do.
But we can do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the second and final question I have, how important is it that we address housing in terms of we're going to create a situation where we're viewed as a place to relocate your organization? How important is it that we address housing from a standpoint that we want to absorb the full effect of live, work, and play, and not have those people just living in Broken Arrow or Tulsa because there's no place to live in Muskogee?
Critical issue. Simply put, housing means talent, because that's who lives in the houses. And to the extent that you can't demonstrate that this is an environment enticing and conducive to people moving here and living here, it's going to be a challenge. And it makes it all the more burden on us to take a regional approach just so that we can be viable from an industrial standpoint. We have to say to folks, and quite frankly, existing industry says to folks, well, it's a great working environment, but we live in Owasso, or we live in Bixby, or we live in Broken Arrow, and it's an easy commute. Now, that's the hand that we're dealt, and that's the hand we have to play until that situation changes.
But it does need to change.
It does need to change.
Yes. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? I would like to say how appreciative I am of you, Eric, and your staff. What you do kind of runs under the radar, and then when it gets to a point of being able to be public information, then it's like we need to elevate it to the highest level. And sometimes that's not easy for us to understand. But I appreciate the work that you have done the last year in your regional effort. I think that will continue to move us in a great direction in Muskogee. And I just want to personally say thank you.
I appreciate that, man.
Thank you to your staff as well. Marie has done fantastic in the relationship with existing industry and the lunches and the collaboration it takes there. And not to say that Scott doesn't support every bit of it as well. The others I don't know as well.
Right.
But thank you. You all are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Appreciate your report.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll address Mr. Miller.
You sure can.
Mr. Miller? Not me, him.
Okay.
I was just curious, on the job situation, how many jobs have we lost in the industry here in Muskogee, and how many have we gained
What time frame are we talking about?
since you took over?
I can only speak situationally. I couldn't give you a cumulative number on that. Well, I can't give you a cumulative number now. I mean, certainly we have industries who, in most instances, aren't directly involved in the oil and gas industry, but they have not been immune to the market volatility in the oil and gas sector. And so you've seen what you might anticipate to be a precipitous decline in their employment based on the fact that the market for oil and gas has been just volatile. And so we've had some companies that have, basically cut jobs. And it's strictly, but it has nothing to do with the business environment in Muskogee. Had everything to do with the business environment in their particular industry sector. And so from that standpoint, we don't have a problem making a compelling case from Muskogee from a business standpoint, depending upon the industry. Not every industry is a fit for Muskogee, and that's fine. We can't be all things to all people. But, we are very in fact, I would take it beyond being very competitive. There are very few communities in the state of Oklahoma who are as well situated geographically as is Muskogee to compete for industrial opportunities. Very few. And I will tell you, because it's been said to me in the last year and a half, people are amazed and emboldened and excited about the progress that Muskogee is making. We are a player. In this state, I can tell you right now, we are a player on the state map for industrial economic development. If an opportunity comes to this state and it's going to look in northeast Oklahoma, I can promise you, 9 out of 10, we're going to be in the mix. And that's not just fluff. I'm telling you that. And those are not things I say very lightly, very easily, or even very often.
Well, I like to apologize to you because I'm guilty of that myself, not coming over there seeing you. And that's just, like I said, I just want to apologize.
Doors always open.
And I'm definitely going to start doing that because I'm guilty of that.
Doors always open.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller, I appreciate your office and getting all the extra information that I requested and sending me the email, because he's right. We're all right. We don't know exactly what your jobs are. We don't know the ins and outs of what you do and how hard it is to do your job. And sometimes we get a lot of people in our ears asking us a bunch of questions, and we have no idea other than to ask. And sometimes we realize that those answers cannot be answered at that time. So we appreciate what y'all do.
I thank you. Well,
Thank you.
And I mean this in the most humble way, in the most sincere way possible. But it's a lot more to it than just people working in companies. I don't mean you. I'm just saying in general. Than having relationships in companies where you formally worked. It's not that easy.
I understand.
It's not that easy.
And we all want to see Muskogee grow and more industry and everything, and so do you.
I assure you, there is nobody more invested in that than me.
And we appreciate your efforts and your work that you do.
Other questions or comments?
I yield the floor back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I like the one he did.
Item number 9.
Consider the approval to accept the proposal from Cowan Group Engineering for the analysis of our water distribution system as recommended by the Selection Committee, and if necessary, direct the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement for the same or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, Mayor and Council, as you are aware, the water system analysis has been identified as one of the high priorities during the last few years, and we have actually put that on the capital improvements or the sales tax vote to go out for a water system analysis, to hire an engineering group to help us identify what our problems are in our water system, and that's in our collection, our distribution, our raw water supply. As you're very well aware, we have big problems, and we're trying to develop a capital plan to move forward. We put out an RFP, and we received proposals back. As you know, 6 were received, and they were 6 good responses. We shortlisted that down to Holloway, Updike, Bell, Professional Engineering Company, Consultants, PEC, and Cowan Group Engineering, CGE. Public Works staff and the city clerk and the fire chief all had interview processes with them. All three groups came in, did their presentations. Afterwards, we independently ranked them, and we came up with a recommendation for Cowan Group Engineering. As you will remember at the Public Works meeting, it was decided that we would try and split this contract between Cowan and Hub, and it was directed to staff to go back and sit down with these companies and try to come up with that plan. We did have a meeting with them. Matt Beasy, myself, Jeff Cowan, and Jay Updike did meet, and after that meeting, it was mutually decided, agreed upon, to recommend that the full project be given to the Cowan Group. Jeff Cowan is here, and he can answer any questions if you're curious about that conversation. But again, the recommendation is to go with the full contract to Cowan Group, and that is to authorize the city manager and staff to negotiate that contract to bring back before you with a full scope of work. So after saying that, I'll answer any questions, or Jeff Cowan is here to assist.
Questions or comments, or would we like to hear from Mr. Cowan regarding that conversation?
If it's not anything new, I would just move for approval.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Leanne, did you have
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
any comment or question? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Jamie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Definitely, yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 10.
Discuss and take action to approve an allocation of up to $20,000 to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center Trust Authority for the remainder of fiscal year 2016, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker.
Mayor, members of the council, as you all know, the council authorized the formation of a Dr. Martin Luther King Center community, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center Trust Authority. Yeah, I got it. And that was created by ordinance and then trust indenture. That entity had its inaugural meeting on February 18th. One of the items on that agenda was the approval of a management contract. The Trust Authority approved a management contract with Neighbors Building Neighborhoods. Neighbors Building Neighborhoods also presented a budget for the operation of the Martin Luther King Center through the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. Presenting anticipated revenue with anticipated expenses and subtracting out grant revenue that could be used to offset that. The trust was authorized to ask the city for up to $20,000 in financial support to ensure that the trust authority had sufficient funds to maintain it through the rest of the year. So I then requested this item be placed on the agenda to authorize me to make that transfer to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center Trust Authority for an amount up to $20,000. Since this was not a budgeted item, I did, in conjunction with our city treasurer, go through our general fund to determine where those funds could be reallocated from. And fortunately, we were able to allocate 3 different sources to take that $20,000 from. The first was a $4,000 overture from the city manager's travel account. Since my travel is from since my travel was budgeted from the city attorney's account, there was that overage that had not been used. Additionally, there was a fund that was set up with $6,500 in it for youth services. This would be a perfect expenditure for youth services. So that was $6,500. And then we also determined that there was a $100,000 expenditure that was allocated for the Pecan Creek allocation bridge. Yet, if you all may recall, that was $100,000 total that was to be paid out over a 3-year period. So we over budgeted for that amount, leaving a surplus. So taking the other $9,500 from that account gets us the $20,000. So with your permission, I'll make that adjustment to the budget and transfer the necessary funds to the trust authority. Happy to answer any questions. I recommend approval.
May I make a comment? I think that what you just did is one of the best ways I've ever heard us hearing about how we just got funds from another area. I mean, that's logical. It made sense. I think that's something that we need to do more often. My personal opinion. I can still say it tonight.
Are
Second.
there other comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, may I address the city manager?
You sure
Interim
can.
city manager. That was a nice comment, Ms. Langston, and I definitely totally agree with you. But you know what happened? But God. He see how he moves and just takes money here and makes money there? So that's who we give the credit to. God just opens doors for us up here at the City Council and for the city of Muskogee. So that's who I give the glory to, is God. Thank you, Mr. Tucker. I'll yield the floor back to you, Mayor.
Are there other comments or questions? And we have a motion in a second.
Yes,
Right? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Audrey Vance.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Abstain.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. And the motion carries. Item number 11.
Consider approval of information technology to solicit an RFP to provide infrastructure for Wi-Fi coverage at Hatbox Sports Complex to cover ticketing areas for G-Fest, RV areas, soccer and football fields, baseball diamonds, water park, and to further authorize a sole source from Suddenlink Communications to provide internet connectivity or take other necessary action.
Mr. Cummings.
Mayor and council, as we discussed at Public Works and Finance, what we want to do is we want to break this and take the connectivity for the internet part separate from the Wi-Fi build out so that we can sole source the internet connectivity to Suddenlink. One thing I do want to make a correction on, we did get a clarification. The $17.50 for the month was for 1 month. It was not an ongoing, it was not a rate that was available to us ongoing. So what we'll do, it's still a great deal. The infrastructure that we put in place from Suddenlink is going to serve Hatbox for years to come, especially the way that we're looking at using Hatbox. I'm very excited about I look at the diagram quite a lot every day, and it's just really exciting to me what we want to do with it, and I wish we could do it tomorrow. But we're getting there. We're making strides. This is an important stride to do. Once we get the infrastructure there, not only will it support G-Fest for the 30 days for that $17.50, but what it also allows us to do is after G-Fest, go back to Suddenlink and negotiate a true ongoing cost for the bandwidth at a rate that is good for what we need to use it for there, which is to cover the ball fields, to cover the other sports venues, and also we'll be able to use that building out to the water park to not only provide Wi-Fi for the water park guests, but also be able to use that as a secure link for water park business back to City Hall network. So it's I just wanted to clarify that we did learn that $17.50 is only for 1 month, and at the end of G-Fest, that will be turned off until we negotiate. We decide how we're going to use it from there and negotiate an ongoing rate. So on that, I still do recommend a sole source with Suddenlink, and I do also seek permission to provide an RFP to provide the Wi-Fi infrastructure to build the Wi-Fi out from the point where Suddenlink brings a service in to the Hatbox Sports Complex out to the various venues, and at the suggestion of City Council, water park is included in that, and I do recommend approval.
How long is it going to take them to get the internet connectivity?
I don't have a hard number, but typically 30 days. They could have it done in 30 days.
Okay.
So if we're able to give them the order, by the first part of March, then that still leaves them plenty of time to get it out there, get it tested, and make sure it's solid for G-Fest.
So is it your understanding or perception thereof that the 1750 is a discounted rate?
For 500 megabits synchronous, yes, sir. That's to put that into perspective. If you've got Suddenlink internet at your house, that's 50 megabits. Okay, that's only one way. Going back the other way is probably only about 5. Okay, this is 10 times what you're getting down to your house, both ways. So that will allow more people to use the Wi-Fi at the same time.
So the sole source that we're requesting is only for this time period. Is that correct? Because if it's not just for this time period, I want to be certain that as we enter into negotiations, we're in a situation that Suddenlink understands if we get a better deal, we will pursue it.
The bandwidth itself, just the speed that you get, is just for the 30 days. But the fiber that they're putting in place to get it out there, that stays put, and that's a one-time cost.
But other companies will be able to use it if we decide to go another direction.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I want to be certain that if we are going to say sole source, that as we negotiate outside of the 30-day window, our other options remain open in the event that Suddenlink is not the lowest bidder.
If Suddenlink builds the fiber out to Hatbox, then no, not another company can use that. That's Suddenlink's fiber.
We don't own it at that point,
No, sir.
the physical
No, sir.
part of it.
So it's sole source for life.
Suddenlink still owns the infrastructure out there. We pay the one-time cost to get it out there, and then as we go on, as we use it, then all they have to do is turn it on, turn it off. If we decide to just do it for special events and nothing else, then we call them up and say, hey, we need internet connectivity for this time period. They quote us a price, and we turn it on. If we decide to, which I'm sure we will, decide to start using it ongoing, then the rate will, whatever rate we choose, that will be ongoing, and it will be continuous until we decide that we don't want it out there anymore.
Councilman Coleman, if I may.
Yes.
We currently have an existing contract with Suddenlink who provides all of the connectivity for the city. Chris, is that correct?
Yes.
And so this would be an extension if we decide to continue to provide the service at Love Hatbox, that it would naturally fit within the contract we've already negotiated. At some point, we always do have the right to go back and negotiate our connectivity contract with Suddenlink and open it up for other providers. And the number of providers that come to the city of Muskogee is very limited, and based upon our existing relationship, that's why it is easier for us to move forward with this now than to go into an unknown with someone who may or may not be able to, in a timely manner, reach this. But we are not committed long-term, but it does fit within our existing contract.
So later on, it's not an impossibility if we needed to go another direction.
Correct. We are not in an exclusive contract that would necessitate any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now I understand that. Okay, Matt clarified that quite. Yes, if we decide not to use it, another company can't use that same infrastructure, but it doesn't stop us from getting another company out there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chris, the total end project of all this, I know this is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
How long will it take us to get everything we need in place to get the Hatbox up and running we got to still do this? I mean, everything's done. How long will it take us?
Right. That is why we're starting now. Without the RFP for the actual Wi-Fi part of it, I don't have an answer to that. But that's why I wanted to go ahead and get this out on council so I could get started on the RFP so we can get that out. Because I'd like to have somebody start building no later than mid-April.
Okay. Do we have a motion yet?
No.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there additional comments?
I have one question. What happens if they can't meet that deadline of June 1st?
Which Suddenlink or the vendor who we choose for the RFP?
If we're going to spend all this money for G-Fest, what's our guarantee it's going to be ready when that comes up?
Shouldn't that be covered in the RFP?
That's what I want to make
Well,
sure.
Yeah.
it would be included
We'll
in the
have penalties.
RFP for the Wi-Fi, and I've got a the copy of the contract they sent me, that of course is going to go to legal before we do anything. So I'm sure that with legal, we can put something in there. There's a, there's something that says it's got to be in place by now, or
Penalties.
We'll ensure that's it.
Significant penalties, you'll, when we bid it, we'll include notification of the short time frame. But the way that you enforce that is with a liquidated damages clause, but you have to make them hefty. Otherwise,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's cheaper to breach the contract. That's why you have to make them hurt.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully?
Yes.
Janie Boydston?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Leanne Langston?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Dan Hall?
Yes.
Mayor Coburn?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 12.
Consider approval of a contract with Safety National Casualty Corporation for excess workers' compensation insurance in the amount of $90,091, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Beast?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you know, the city is self-insured for its workman's comp insurance. However, we do have an excess carrier for any claim above $500,000 as required by state law. We currently have our policy with Safety National. The policy, which is expiring, we pay a premium of $85,758. We did go out for bids, as we have in the previous years, and only 2 companies responded, one which was Safety National, which submitted a bid which increases the premium $4,333. Midwest Employers submitted a bid showing 3 possible options, as you can see from your packet, all of which were in excess. One, the cheapest, which included an increased out-of-pocket coverage, effectively, was still $2,000 more than what Safety National has provided. Based on this, the increase is based on our payroll. Our payroll increased approximately $400,000, and we pay .4303 per $100 of payroll. So due to the increased payroll, we have an increased premium. Therefore, I would be recommending that we renew our insurance with the increased premium with Safety National, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully?
Yes.
Janie Boydston?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Leanne Langston?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Dan Hall?
Yes.
Mayor Coburn?
Yes, motion carries. We have a couple of people who have signed up to speak, and then Eric Miller, if you would come after these 2, please, and make a comment for us. Ivory Van, you had signed up to speak, sir.
Good evening. Ivory Van, 911 Holden, Muskogee, Oklahoma. I'm speaking as a citizen and also speaking as a city councilman tonight. I went to the Muskogee City Foundation meeting today on this Muskogee Little Theater, giving them $1.3 million, and also loaning them $250,000. I know it was hard. It was a hard decision for the board, and I disagreed. I mean, I was glad some of the board members there disagreed with giving them this money. Because, like I say, I sat there and I listened to it, and it'll be in tomorrow's paper, and people, the citizens of Muskogee can listen. But you just had to actually be there just to see what really transpired. And myself as a councilman, I definitely would have voted no, because, and they gave the reasons why they gave the money to them. But I just disagree with it, because that $1 million that they give to them today took away from other people's projects next year. You know, that the company that the Little Theater dealt with, the architect and so on, they kind of put them in between a rock and a hard place. I mean, they really did. But I can understand why the foundation board did do what they did, voted yes, because, like I say, I'm a councilman in Ward 3, and I'd love to see the Muskogee Little Theater there downtown. So, like I said, I just felt, like I said, the City Foundation, they did what they had to do because they were pressured. And I hope we never get in a situation here in Muskogee like that, like it was today, where a company, an architect or anybody like that will pressure us to give somebody $1.3 million. That was wrong. And that's why I'm standing before the mic today. But I'm not going to talk any more negative talk. I just want to say that, if I can do anything to help the Muskogee Little Theater, I'll support them because, like I say, me and Councilman Derek Reed, we are councilmen in this ward, and I'd love to go to their board meetings because I think a councilman should be involved in everything that goes on in their ward. But I commend the people that voted no, and I commend the people that voted yes. But that's, like I said, it'll be in the Mars paper, and I want people to read it. And Mr. Smoot, I'm pretty sure he'll outline it very well. But like I said, again, I think it should have been a no vote. And that way, because we depend too much on this foundation. And God, like I say, He has blessed us to have this foundation. But like I said, it's just we depend entirely too much on it. So that's my comments for tonight, and I appreciate everybody that's listening, in the here and also at home. Thank you.
Reverend Marlon Coleman.
May I speak from this place?
You sure can, sir.
I have some very good news to share, and that is on Saturday, this coming Saturday, the Antioch Church, along with several of our civic organizations and community organizations within the city, will be sponsoring a Black History program here in the city of Muskogee at the Antioch Church. From 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, we're going to have face painting for all of the young people who attend. And at 4 o'clock, we have a program where we're going to identify some specific groups to represent, those being African Americans who work in the Muskogee public school system, African Americans who work with the police and fire and safety departments within our city. We're encouraging everyone to attend. It's an opportunity for all of us to come together and embrace the culture and life of a very key and intricate part of our community. We hope that everyone will attend. That will be Saturday at 2 o'clock with face painting for all of our young people. 4 o'clock, the program will begin. There'll be gospel music. There'll be a reception for those targeted groups, again, being African Americans in Muskogee Public Schools, police and fire, and certainly we are encouraging everyone to attend. We're also working with some of our employment organizations and others who provide services so that those in the community who need the most help in terms of job placement, in terms of assistance on how to find a job, and just assistance on how to be a better citizen, we offer those services for those individuals during that time as well, and we invite the entire community to attend.
So
Thank
what's
you.
the address?
500 West Broadway, downtown Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Just checking.
Did we need his address from his home address?
I am so sorry. Marlon Coleman, 11 Oak Park Lane, Muskogee, Oklahoma. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Mr. Miller, you had an additional comment.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Just as an addendum to my comments, I made an egregious error, an oversight, if you will. And as my minister at home used to say, charge it to my head, not my heart. But an invaluable member of the port team, the industrial office team, a lady who wears multiple hats across this city, and is indefatigable in her efforts to advocate for this city. Kimber Scott is a vital member of the team, and I certainly want to acknowledge her contributions to the office as well. So just want to be on the record with that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. No additional comments? That concludes our agenda. We are adjourned. Thank you.